I'm joined now by Brenda Councill, an accomplished First Coast artist and sculptor. She's also presently at work creating a bronze statue of Harriet Beecher Stowe, the famed author and abolitionist who owned property in Jacksonville. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So Harriet Beecher Stowe, of course, wrote the classic anti-slavery novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, but she also has a connection to Mandarin. Tell us about what her connection is there and how you personally came upon her as an influence.
Well, thank you for letting me talk about this. Harriet Beecher Stowe's legacy here is phenomenal. She spent 17 summers in Mandarin, and she established the first Freedmen's Bureau to help the formerly enslaved and the poor, desperate community in Mandarin. She also established the Church of Our Savior, which is still a landmark. And along the roadside in Mandarin Road, you see two road markers. Well, I felt like that simply wasn't enough to create the story and the narrative that was so important for the United States as well as the state of Florida, and certainly Mandarin, to recognize Harriet Beecher Stowe.
And so to tell us a little bit about, go ahead.
So I came up with a concept of creating a public art piece that not only helped open the conversation about Harriet Beecher Stowe, but to educate people on her legacy here.
What do you think is important that people know about her? What story of her do you tell?
Well, I think most importantly, she could have been a lady of leisure when she moved to Mandarin. She was well off at that time, but she really became engaged in the community. She worked with the Black community with heart and soul. That, first and foremost, needs to be recognized on a large scale, and that's why this monument, this public piece, will narrate that story. She also had a commercial enterprise, which is important to recognize that she actually was in business with orange groves. People don't understand that, but it worked out well for her.
And there used to be many.
About 30 acres of groves.
So the book that she is best known for, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was the best-selling book of its time, and very influential. I mean, there's even kind of this apocryphal story that she met Abraham Lincoln at one point, and he said something along the lines of, this is the lady that started the war, kind of inspired the fight, the Civil War fight to end slavery.
Well, correct. And she was, as most Americans would know, a foremost activist. She was an abolitionist along with William Lord Garrison and certainly Frederick Douglass. And she was a pillar in the abolitionist society. And really, Uncle Tom's Cabin changed the world, in fact. And the state of Florida needs to recognize how important Harriet Beecher Stowe was to our state.
When you say that it changed the world, in what way?
Well, the Uncle Tom's Cabin really brought to the forefront the issue of slavery. And that was, it was a discussion that was the foremost discussion of the time. Certainly prior to the Civil War, of course, the novel came out in 1852 and caused a firestorm. So the controversy followed her throughout her life. But in Mandarin, I will say that she never got one negative comment from during her time in this area, which is quite astounding.
So tell us about the sculpture that you're working on. It's a bronze sculpture. Describe to us how you're doing it, where you're doing it.
Well, currently you can come see me actually work on the sculpture in clay. And it is at the old Mandarin Store and Post Office, which is is on the National Historic Registry, right next to the Community Club, which is the Freedmen's Bureau, in fact, that Harriet Beecher Stowe built in 1872. So that little historical area is where I'm actually sculpting the piece. And you can come see me every weekend this month Friday through Saturday from 10 to 2. And I'll be there to greet you. And I'm working on the second figure of 3 figures in the sculpture. The next, well, the grand finale is Harriet Beecher Stowe, and I'll be beginning that actual sculpture in about a week.
And what are the other elements?
Well, I have 2 young boys sitting on an upturned orange crate, and they are interacting with Harriet Beecher Stowe. They have little slates. So she's having a moment with them, an educational moment. She perhaps is teaching them the alphabet or how to spell their name. They would have been very poor and most likely illiterate. She established the first school in Mandarin that educated both the white and the black community.
Wow. And so you're working in clay, you're creating a sculpture. I don't think I know, and perhaps our listeners don't know either, how a bronze sculpture is created.
Well, it is from clay to bronze. I use an oil-based clay. I'm building the armatures from wire and foam. This is the old-fashioned way. A lot of sculptors out there know that you can use 3D technology to actually sculpt now. So I am doing this by hand, every meticulous detail. The clay is then delivered to a foundry. The foundry is in North Carolina. That is a 5-month process from molding. All of my lines, even my last fingerprint, will end up in that bronze. And it's the lost wax process, which hasn't changed in thousands of years. So this is the first stage of a year of fabrication of this sculpture. So it is really monumental.
And so they take your clay work, they put it and create a wax mold, and then
That's
pour the
correct.
bronze.
That's correct. The lost wax process, exactly.
Are you
Yes.
going to get to see any of that?
Yes, I will be at the foundry off and on for many weeks I work on the waxes, perfecting them before another mold is made. Then I work on the patina, which is one of the last steps. I'm there throughout that process. So yes, it's a long and tedious and expensive process.
It's fascinating that you're doing it. Is it distracting to you to be working in public? Have you ever done that before?
A little bit. Yes, I have. Been in the public realm doing this sort of thing before. And I think it's really important that the public see how a sculpture, certainly a public sculpture, is fabricated, bronze in particular. Now, the clay is a specialty clay, but they can see the life-size forms, being sculpted really in real time. And I think it is important that everyone see that in this society where everything seems to be instantaneous, not in this case.
Any do's or don'ts for people who are going to come and watch you do this?
Oh, I welcome any interaction. Questions, I certainly welcome. You can touch the clay. You can actually hold my instruments and tools. And that's a big part of this.
So cool. Well, people can watch this sculpture in action at the historic Mandarin Store and Post Office in Mandarin from 10 to 2 each Friday through Sunday until February.
Yes, and I hope to finish in February.
Well, Brenda Councill, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be